What's up, guys? Let's get to the predictions for UFC Fight Night Pittsburgh that's happening this weekend. Not the most stacked card, not the most competitive fights, but we could always be surprised. These kind of cards, for some reason, deliver the most. Let's start with Christoph Jaco versus Uriah Hall. This should be an interesting fight. You got Jaco, who is known to go to decision most of the time. He fights on points. He's really good at going in and out on strikes. But I think he's going to have problems on the feet with Uriah Hall unless he pressures Hall constantly and tries to get that takedown, because Hall is one of the most dynamic strikers in the game. Knockout power in everything he has. He's one of the fastest middleweights in the world. But he's off sometimes. I mean, he has so much potential, but for some reason, he doesn't perform to his abilities, it seems like. His spinning techniques are some of the most least telegraphed spinning attacks I've ever seen. And he's a big fighter for the division. So my prediction, I'm actually going to go with Christoph Jaco. I think he's going to pressure Hall. I think he's going to grind into a decision and try to get takedowns and all that. Then we go to Komaru Usman versus Sergio Maurice. This should be an interesting fight because Komaru Usman is one of those welterweights that are up and coming and try to get closer to the title shot. He's a wrestler, very long reach. He's a grinding wrestler, very pressuring, very strong, very hard to get him off you. And he has heavy ground and pound when he goes that route. His pressure against the cage is some of the best in the division. And he's fighting Sergio Maurice, who's predominantly a jiu-jitsu fighter. He's going to be a little bit more comfortable on the ground than Usman's previous opponents. So it's going to be interesting to see how Usman reacts to that and how he deals with a real jiu-jitsu fighter who's really good with submissions. Maurice is also pretty good on the feet. He could be wild at sometimes, looking too much for the knockout. But I do believe that on the feet is going to be a bit even. But I think Usman's going to get it to the ground and control Maurice. There's going to be potential submission attempts and danger Usman's going to see in there, especially guillotines. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Komaru Usman, and I'm going to go by a decision. Then we go to Hector Lombard versus Anthony Smith. This should be a really fun fight. Probably performance or fight of the night. Hector Lombard, who's a judo fighter but predominantly strikes. He's really good with his takedowns, especially throws, but he's very small for the division. He's only 5'9", and he's fighting a guy who is 6'4" at middleweight. I mean, there's going to be a giant size difference in these two. Hector Lombard doesn't use footwork at all. He's really flat-footed. He tries to land that left bomb on you over and over again. He tries to cover the distance with the right hand sometimes. And he keeps his hands really low, which could be a big problem, especially against Anthony Smith, who's really good with knees, really good with kicks, and is pretty much a striker himself. And he's one of the toughest guys that come around. If Lombard cannot put Smith away early, Lombard is going to have a really hard time because Lombard doesn't really have the best gas tank either. And not just that, he's not too great at conserving his energy. So it's a pretty hard fight to call. This is the hardest fight to call on the card. So my prediction is going to be Anthony Smith. I'm going to go with Anthony Smith, and I'm going to go by a second or third round knockout after going through a really hard first round. Then we go to the main event. Luke Rockhold versus David Branch. This is easily the fight that everyone's looking forward to the most. You got Luke Rockhold, who's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. His kicks are some of the best in the division. His boxing is pretty good, although his defense and boxing is not the greatest. As you've seen in the Michael Bisping fight, his left power kick to the body and to the head are devastating. And he has probably the best question mark kick in the UFC, off either leg. His predominant punching technique is that check right hook as his opponent comes in, because he is one of the biggest middleweights in the division. But the weird thing is, David Branch is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. David Branch's reach is 81 inches. Get that. 81 inches in the middleweight division. That's longer than Alexander Gustafsson's and longer than most heavyweights. So I think Rocco's going to have a hard time timing that check right hook. I think he's mainly going to look for kicks. And Luke Rockhold also has a really good ground game, especially his submissions and transitions. He's a big guy, and it's very hard for people to control him from transitioning on him because he's long and he's big and he's very strong. His submissions are amazing. And you got David Branch here, who is a good boxer, really good at picking his shots, especially with the right hand. And his jiu-jitsu is really good as well. So people are writing David Branch off here. I'm not writing him off at all, because the style of Branch can cause Rockhold a lot of problems, especially that reach. Rockhold is not used to fighting guys like that, because Rockhold fights very long. Although he does use his kicks, but when his opponent gets in too close for the kicks and gets in punching distance, Rockhold's going to have trouble in this fight if it gets to that. I believe that's what Branch's game plan is going to be. Try to get a little bit closer so he can land his own punches and move out as Rockhold tries to land his and try to counter him or something or take him down. I think Branch believes that he has a better jiu-jitsu game, which is going to be interesting to see. I don't know who has a better jiu-jitsu game. I would have to go with Rockhold in MMA. It's tougher than people think, I believe. But I'm going to go with Luke Rockhold at the end. I can honestly see David Branch winning this fight. I can see him winning by a TKO around the second or third round. But I'm going to go with Luke Rockhold. I think his kick's going to be a little bit too much. I think he's going to find home for the body kick, especially with the left leg. And if it goes to the ground, I don't think it's going to hit the ground before Luke Rockhold hurts David Branch. And that's going to drop that black belt to like a purple belt, to a blue belt, and further and further down. I do see Luke Rockhold finishing it on the ground, either by TKO or a submission. I'll say probably in the third round. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. And comment below what your guys' predictions are. Who you guys think is going to win in the main event? I know most people are going to pick Luke Rockhold, but don't count out David Branch. He's better than people think he is. And I know this is going to be a good card. I know it's going to deliver because these kind of cards always deliver, so I never miss them. Although the Triple G and Canelo fight is happening, so I'm most likely going to watch all the fights I can until Triple G fights Canelo. And then I'll tune into Triple G and Canelo, and then I'll watch the rest of this right after. So, and also, if anyone wants to know, I already made my Triple G and Canelo prediction video. I'm going to put it at the end of the video so you guys can click on that if you guys want to see my prediction on that fight. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, and make sure you guys watch these fights.